Możecie skorzystać. Jest też bezalkoholowe, tylko najbardziej próbowałem po prawej stronie upchnąć trochę bezalkoholowego. Za chwilę zaczynamy, to znaczy zaczynamy w sumie teraz, więc skorzystajcie z piwa, siadajcie, zajmujcie miejsca i będziemy rozpoczynać wydarzenie. Nie, ten mikrofon jest do live'a. I żebym się wydawał poważniejszy. Tak? Bardziej chyba się... Dobra, tak się da. Cześć. Witajcie na 44. Bicoin, na którym jak zawsze będzie się dużo działo, ale jest tutaj was wyjątkowo niedużo, ale z drugiej strony zazwyczaj jeszcze tam za pół godzinki więcej się osób pojawi. Cieszę się, że widzę tak zacne grono. I zaczynajmy. Info działa wszystko? Lecimy? Tak? Aniu, sprawdzisz, czy dźwięk działa i tak dalej? Dobra. Dobrze jest, dobra. Jest dobrze, to działamy. Witajcie. Ja nazywam się Stanisław Wołoch, jestem waszym hostem dzisiaj. Jestem z takiej tam firmy Quark, kantory Bicoin, czyli takie miejsce, gdzie możecie przyjść i za gotówkę kupić, sprzedać kryptowaluty. No i tak jak na każdym evencie zaczynam ten event i opowiadam jakieś podstawowe rzeczy. Na przykład mówię o tym, żebyście nie ulegali skamom, bo jest ich teraz wyjątkowo dużo. Ale może przed tym, jak zacznę opowiadać albo tłumaczyć wam, czym są kryptowaluty i na co warto zwrócić uwagę, korzystając z nich, to zadam wam kilka pytań, żeby wiedzieć, z kim dzisiaj rozmawiam. Pierwsze pytanie. Kto z was ma jakieś kryptowaluty? Dobra, kilka. Drugie pytanie. Gdzie je trzymacie? Czy trzymacie je u siebie na portfelu i wtedy podnosicie rękę lewą, a jak nie, to prawą, jeżeli trzymacie je na giełdzie? No dobra, jedną rękę to jest jak podnosicie, jak trzymacie na giełdzie, a to jak trzymacie u siebie na portfelu. W sensie nasza, tak. Możecie odbicie lustrzane do mnie robić. Aha. Tak. Dobra. A ci, którzy nie mają kryptowalut, to jest jakiś konkretny powód, dlaczego przyszliście, wpadliście na Bicoin, czego chcielibyście się dowiedzieć z takiego wydarzenia? Ktoś podpowie? Jest cisza. Dobra, nie chcę się przyznawać. Słucham? Dobra. Dobra, no to nie będę dzisiaj długo tłumaczył i opowiadał. Jest dzisiaj dużo ciekawych wykładów, bardzo intensywny dzisiaj będzie wieczór. Pierwsza rzecz, jak trzymacie na giełdzie, to pamiętajcie, że kryptowaluty, które się znajdują na giełdzie, nie są do końca waszymi kryptowalutami. One są w posiadaniu tej giełdy i to tej giełdy będzie zależało, czy ona im je wam wypłaci, czy nie wypłaci. To jest podstawowa rzecz, więc jak macie możliwość, to przyślijcie swoje kryptowaluty na swoje portfele. Portfele zabezpieczcie. Jeżeli nie wiecie, jak zabezpieczyć portfele, to miesiąc temu albo 2 miesiące temu, zresztą jest nagranie z tego wydarzenia, możecie obejrzeć po prostu poprzedni odcinek Bicoin, który jest na YouTubie i dowiedzieć się, w jaki sposób zabezpieczyć swój portfel albo jak przypilnować to, Zresztą bardzo wiele wykładów już poruszanych na Bicoin było, w jaki sposób bezpiecznie przechowywać swoje kryptowaluty. Kolejna ważna sprawa, bo jest bardzo dużo teraz skamów dotyczących oszustw kryptowalutowych. Tak, to nie jest prawda, że jeżeli wyśle się na adres X, szczególnie jak to jest Elon Musk, to, że ktoś wam odeśle 2 razy więcej bitcoinów. To się nie działa, to się nie dzieje, to się nie sprawdza. Po prostu. Pilnujcie swoje środki, dbajcie o nie i nie martwcie się o to. To znaczy, martwcie się o swoje środki, ale bezpiecznie dbajcie o nie. Jeszcze raz po 1000-kroć będę wam to przypominać na kolejnych wydarzeniach, bo to jest bardzo ważne i istotne i tak dalej. Co ciekawego dzisiaj się wydarzy witajcie w Hackerspace'ie. W jednym z najbardziej undergroundowych, albo możliwe, że najbardziej undergroundowym miejscu w Warszawie. Kto był w bardziej undergroundowym miejscu w Warszawie? Niech się przyzna. Nikt się nie przyznaje, czyli miałem rację. Miałem rację. Byłeś, tak? Gdzie byłeś? Drugi Dom Rocka. A to jest w Warszawie gdzieś? Na Potockiej? To muszę tam pójść i sprawdzić.
Zweryfikujemy.
Tak, zweryfikujemy. Od razu... No, czekaj, to zapiszę od razu. Gdzie to było? Drugi Dom Rocka. Jest Otok Bar, sala konferencyjna. Ale na zdjęciach tak nie wygląda, ale jest pizza, czyli już liczy. Dobra, jak jest... Dobra, to zapisane. Dobra, trzeba to odwiedzić, zobaczyć, czy rzeczywiście kolega ma rację. Tych, co nie byli ani w nowym Domu Rocka, ani w Hackerspace'ie, to zapraszam pozwiedzać, zobaczyć, jak to wszystko wygląda. A tych, co są dzisiaj, to jak będzie przerwa i się zgłosicie, to możecie ze mną pójść na wycieczkę, oprowadzę was w Hackerspace'ie i pokażę, co tutaj się dzieje ciekawego. Na przykład przebierających się hakerów na tyłach. A już się przebrał. Trudno. No tak, więc pamiętajcie, żeby dbać o swoje kryptowaluty i opowiem wam, jaka jest agenda na dzisiaj, tych, którzy nie przeczytali. Zresztą kilkakrotnie ona się zmieniała w ciągu ostatniego miesiąca i dużo było zmian. To tak, zaraz za mną wejdzie Tomek, Kołodziejczuk i Fernando i będą opowiadać o Nostr. Nostr to jest taka platforma podobna do Twittera, tylko że lepsza. A co to znaczy lepsza? To znaczy, że ma bitcoiny. I też jest zdecentralizowana i bezpieczna i w ogóle fajna. I nie zbiera twoich danych, albo nie w taki sposób, jak to robi Facebook i Twitter. Później będzie Ordinals. Tomas Skandera opowie nam trochę o Ordinalsach. Właśnie, wasze prezentacje będą w angielskim czy w polskim? Dobra, to zaraz się zapytamy. You prefer to have the presentation in English or in Polish? Tomas will be in English because he's not... Yeah, sure. But you prefer to have presentation Polish or English? All of them. Okay. Yes. Yes. English or yes Polish? Yes. English. A ci, którzy są z Polski, to dacie radę sobie z angielskimi prezentacjami? No i jeszcze Tomek nam troszkę opowie o Bicoin FilmFestie. I jeszcze o Nostr. Pierre dotrze? Fajnie. Fajnie. I na deser Pierre Corbin opowie też trochę o Nostrze, ale o jej w Nostrze. For them who only English speaking, there will be few presentation. Half of them will be about the Nostr. It's like a telecommunication protocol, quite similar to the idea is quite similar to the Twitter, but it's better. And it's have Bitcoin. And will be also presentation about the Ordinals. And a little bit about the Bitcoin FilmFest that will be next year. And this year it was the huge success with Bitcoin FilmFest. It's film festival with Bitcoin films, quite interesting. And European Halving party. So I also have a question. Maybe later. In the meantime, so thank you. And the next will be Tomek K. And Fernando.
Thank you, Stanisław.
Chce się pozamienić mikrofony w połowie, czy jak mówicie równolegle, to mogę wziąć mikrofon? Dobrze, okej.
Okay, guys, while they do technicals, I will do what I always like to do when I start talking with public. I like to know who we are talking to. So I was always fascinated with beer and Bitcoin. Last month I was for the first time here because I didn't know there is another Bitcoin meetup, because we do 21 Bitcoin meetups, which are Bitcoin Maxis meetups. But here Stanisław is bringing sometimes shitcoiners, which I don't mind. We have this nice open space, so thank you, Stanisław, for inviting me. Second time I'm here, and I have pleasure to present something here. My name is Tomek, and I work at Albi. I also run Bitcoin Film Festival, and also help my friend Fernando with his project Yana. Yana is a Nostr client, and we're gonna speak a bit about Nostr. This is this new Bitcoiner social network, social protocol. So to learn a bit about more about you, let's see then. Do we have Bitcoin maximalists here? Please raise your hands. Who is a Bitcoin maximalist? Okay, there is few. So Bitcoin maximalist, this is like a position that I come from. And that's why you have this logo, which is a position that like Bitcoin is actually the revolution, and it's a tool on a civilizational scale of change. Instead of some cryptocurrencies, which are maybe could be considered as nice VC projects, most of them are not solving real problems, in my opinion, but it's totally different category than Bitcoin. So we also do our meetups, 21, you can find us on Twitter. We do Nostr and Bitcoin Maxis meetups. Okay, but who here also uses Twitter? Okay, more people than Bitcoin Maxis. Who is kind of disappointed with the state that current social media is in? Yeah, who is very much satisfied with where social media is going today? Oh, Philip, you're satisfied.
I heard that very not satisfied.
No, satisfied. Sorry.
So, who heard about Nostr?
Yeah, who heard about Nostr? Next question. There is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, only here.
Have you installed some client? Yes, you use it. Do you use it daily? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Oh, cool. Cool. That's very cool. Okay, so Nostr. Yeah. Now this is only for the recording. It's not amplifying here, right?
Yeah.
So Nostr stands for nodes and other stuff transmitted by relays, and it's quite a funny name. It was created, we could say, by some Brazilian guy, which is not know his identity, is quite anonymous. He tries to stay anonymous. And it was inspired by a marketplace which was created in LN Beats. You guys know what LN Beats are? Yeah, so LN Beats is very, very, very nice product. It has a lot of plugins, extensions, and one of the extensions was Marketplace. And this creator of LN Beats, Ben Ark, was making this marketplace, and this Fiat Jeff, the guy who created Nostr, he was also contributing to the marketplace, and they together they came up with an idea for a protocol. So this Fiat Jet created this protocol, and let's find out more. So you guys know traditional social networks, Twitter, Facebook, traditionally work like this. There is a big main server, and you have a client which you can connect. Of course, for example, Twitter, until recently, you could use other clients. There was an open API you could use. There was a few implementations of other clients. But of course, under Elon management, they close. It's not longer possible to use Twitter with other clients. So we come back to the traditional server client in Twitter. So Facebook, YouTube, each one of them works like this. Yeah? And so there is, of course, many disadvantages of this model. For one, you cannot be sure that they not spy on your communications, yeah? And it's centralized. So if you disagree or if you cross some line, you can be completely deplatformed. So there is this disadvantage. You want to talk more? No. Disadvantage? Anybody has any doubts whether these traditional social platforms are positive or negative? Yeah.
I think it just has inherent problem in nature. I can speak loudly. Okay, sorry. I think there is a just inherent problem in nature of social networks today, that their users operate on network, but they actually pretend to operate on network, while the server side is not a network, it's a centralized entity. So Nostr also solves this, where it puts a network of relays against, or not against, but together with network of users, and in a similar style like Bitcoin does, and it has lots of similarities to Bitcoin, it gives user, okay, not spoil, but it gives user some personal identity. And also it gives us, being not a platform, but a protocol, it gives ability to be used in various ways. It could be used like HTTP is used by Twitter, by Facebook, by Canva.com, by most of their websites, probably all of them. But when you go to Facebook and you want to chat, you use their language. While there could be, maybe like with Bitcoin, like with lower level of communication, there could be a language which allows for people to talk regardless of what app they use for using this language.
So I can keep it. So the next step, let's say, or for a few years now, there are some, because a lot of people was aware of this problem with Facebook, Twitter, and there were several tries to overcome this centralized problem, and one of them is Mastodon. You guys have heard of Mastodon? Anybody uses Mastodon? Okay. So it looks more or less like this. It's still a server-client architecture, if we are talking in terms of network configuration. Every person can start their own server, but there are still the same problems that if you are a user that you registered here in this server, you are submitted to the rules of this server. So there is a benefit dictator of this server, and he decides what are the rules, and if you cross any of these rules, he can kick you out of this. And all of your content can be lost also. Yeah? You cannot, and your identity. If you create an identity here, if you have to move to other server, you cannot take your identity with you. So that's the main issue with Mastodon.
It's an issue with many It's issue with many platforms, right?
Yeah.
Whether we use some, when we used to do these forums, PHP BB,
Yeah.
all of us used it. It's the same tool, but still we had to register our identity on their server without any option for a cross login.
Yeah, so basically it's the same problem, it's just duplicate, it's just more of them. Yeah? So Nostr, somebody wrote a very nice article I can give you in the end, comparison of what is really Nostr. And it's like a hydra, it's like something that if you cut a head, it just has many other heads, so it's impossible to kill it, basically. Yeah? So the architecture looks more or less like this. You have a bunch of relays and a bunch of clients. And basically, each client decides with which relay it connects. You can connect only with one. You can connect with any amount that you want. You can start your own relay, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So it basically looks like this. So it's very hard to kill, yeah, basically.
And okay, maybe let me spoil, but also if I want to see if I understand it correctly, because actually Fernando is the expert here. Relays are these, because Nostr is nodes and other stuff transmitted by relays. Relays are these servers, quite simple to use. Like think of maybe Lightning nodes, but with that broadcast and store information posted to them. So if you want to publish some post or if you want to send a message, you basically transmit this information to some relays, and they check in your identity. If they are signed correctly with your keys, they can store it and they can broadcast it to other relays. So basically, it's when relay network is quite decentralized, is like unstoppable method of communication. And clients here.
Sorry, most relays don't broadcast. Of course, you can make an implementation of relay that broadcasts. So that means that a relay would behave as a client.
Okay, so client broadcast.
Yeah,
okay.
The client's broadcast. Yeah.
Okay, so then expert spoke. And client is basically a software, is an app that you can use to talk in Nostr language. It can be a mobile app, it can be a website, it can be a website that shows these messages in a Twitter-like way, or show these messages as your direct messages between them, or both of them, or maybe actually invent something to do an Instagram but using this language. So these clients can be this interpretation of what's happening in this Nostr network, is this nodes and other stuff, and you can innovate on it. Right now, most of them look like Twitter, and I copy some likes and zaps from Twitter, but there is plenty of possibilities. Right now we're talking about social media because this is the most explored one, but this invention is also not a new invention. It's also like with Bitcoin, it's a combination of various methods used before in the network structure, in cryptography and identities. So yeah, I think this can incentivize lots of innovations in the way that we did not yet even think what client could be.
So Nostr is not a blockchain. So if you come here thinking about some altcoins or some cryptocurrencies, Nostr is completely nothing. It's not a blockchain, it's not a currency, it's not a social network, it's not a social network. So that's very important. So as you said, the first use case is to copy Twitter, is to make something like Twitter. But that does not mean that Nostr is a social network. Nostr, as I will show a little more in a few slides, is a protocol. So a social network implies that something like Twitter or Facebook is something that is closed. Yeah, they make the rules. You have to obey the rules, or you can be kicked out of that. It's not a social network. It can be used to make a social network. Yeah, but it's basically a protocol. The same way as HTTP or TCP/IP is a protocol that you can use to make a lot of applications, including social network. Nostr is also a protocol that you can use to make social network similar to Twitter, but you can make a lot of other things on Nostr because it's a protocol. Yeah. So yeah, and it's not a peer-to-peer network. That's important because the only communication that usually exists is clients communicate with a lot of relays, and the relays just respond to the requests with data. Either writing the data that clients ask to be written, or respond with data that clients ask to be read. It's different from a peer-to-peer network, completely something different. Yeah? And it's also not a consistent protocol. It's nothing like Bitcoin.
So like peer-to-peer, you could think like maybe your Signal app. This is type of peer-to-peer messaging through some protocol that is encrypted on both sides.
More or less.
Yeah, but some people also like don't think in like that networks that we use, they have some kind of structure that, of course, its nature nature incentivizes some power structures, some vulnerabilities. And when you start think of internet in terms of networks, like how Bitcoin actually is a different structure of network than Lightning Network, and how SMTP is different than torrent network, then sometimes it clicks, like it clicks with Bitcoin when you think of Nostr.
So again, it's a protocol. It's not a social network. It's not an application. It's a simple protocol. And because it is simple and because it is a protocol, it's very resilient. It's very able to be censorship resistant and to be killed. That's why I compared it, not me, but the guy who wrote the article, and I agree with that. It's like a hydra, like this mythic creature with a lot of heads that you cut one off and etc. So it does not rely on any trusted central. It's
actually, in Nostr memes, it's more often presented as a swarm of ostriches, strusie, but in purple coral. Like in Bitcoin, there is some.
See, I come especially to the
because it's called ostrich in English.
Yeah, it's the people that use Nostr. They call themselves usually nostriches.
Yeah.
That's the funny. And this is important. It's based on cryptographic keys and signatures. So, and the method is the same as Bitcoin. We'll see in a minute. And that means that nobody can fake something. If you sign some piece of text with your signature that only you have your private key, nobody else can tamper with, can change the content of it, or can publish pretending to be you. That's one of the most important things.
Similar like in Bitcoin, like it's very easy to see whether this message was posted by you, whether it's correctly signed with your keys. It's every relay can check it and can accept it to store it, but it's like almost impossible to pretend that it's you. If I want to post message to this network and saying, "Oh yeah, I'm Agata," or whatever your name, it's like the relay is easily checked. No, it's not her. The signature doesn't match.
And that
but to fake the signature is impossible.
That means that when you don't lose your private key, if you keep your private key safe, you are responsible for your identity. And this is very important also, because it doesn't matter what relays you choose to use, what clients, if you keep your private key safe, your data that was signed, it will always be yours. If you come to the conclusion that these relays are behaving in a censorship way because they have some pressure from the government or from other authorities, you can decide, I will take my data somewhere else, and this data is signed by you, so there is no possibility of tampering with. So this very quickly. So
another similarity to Bitcoin.
Yeah, but it's a little bit different. It's not Bitcoin improvement proposals as the BIPs that usually Bitcoin are composed. It's Nostr implementation possibilities. And why? Because there is only one NIP which is mandatory. It's the one that describes. So this is mandatory. This is part of NIP 01. The first NIP, and it's the only one which is mandatory. If you want to use Nostr as a client or as a relay, you have to implement this NIP. Every other NIP, and there are almost 100 of them, are optional. You can decide to implement it or not implement it. So if you choose a client, you can check which NIPs this client implements. You can decide which client to use depending on which NIPs implements. This is NIP 01, and again, it just specifies it's a JSON structure. here is the public key. So you keep your private key private. Here, from that private key, you generate your public key. Kind defines just what kind of event this is. Each NIP will have its defining a lot of kinds. Few tags, content, and then you sign with your private key this piece of JSON. Yeah? And when you sign with your private key, if it's valid, you post this to a relay or to many relays that you want. And this is your content. It's signed by you. Everybody that wants to read has your public key, can check that if it was really you that posted this content. And this is very, very basic, but it's also the most important thing that keeps Nostr together. Yeah?
And you can run your own relay. Like in Bitcoin, it's not a difficult piece of software to be run on your computer to make sure that your data is with you, not maybe your relays that you send your data to, they will be not available in 50 years, you know?
Yeah, so I already said it's decentralized.
Well, it is. It depends how you look at it. There are like few major players, clients. It's still quite altruistic network where relays are, well, some servers that are being run for people, for this network to grow. But probably the electricity there costs a bit, and people yet do not pay much to use this network. There is no ads, right? So who gonna support these servers? Who gonna store this data? It's a question, and how it's gonna play out with decentralization also is yet to know.
Yeah, this is a famous tweet quote that again it shows what I already told you, that they can cancel my Twitter account, they can cancel whatever social network account, but as long as I keep my private key safe, I don't lose them, or I don't put in some app that leaks, I'm in control of my Nostr account. That's the most important thing. So this is the webpage Nostr Watch. It just shows currently active relays to which you can connect and get data.
Well, it's also funny that Nostr is kind of advertised as being like this messaging protocol that cannot be stopped and then can be used in authoritarian regimes. But so far we see most of it in US and Western Europe.
Yeah.
But probably the time will come when there will be some crash on internet in some, I don't know, or on Twitter in some Turkey or somewhere, and then Nostr will pop out. It's early still.
Yeah. So one of the nice things is also that you can run your own relay. If you have, if you already run your own Bitcoin node, who runs Bitcoin node? Okay, so probably you have at home some kind of server that you take care. So it's very, very simple to run your Nostr relay. This is my private relay. It's running on Umbrel. It was just really one click and it's running. So it's very, for running, it's very simple. To be able to access it from outside, from a clear net perspective, if you want to connect your client without a VPN, it's more complicated, but it's also possible. If you want to use it only for you privately, because it's my private relay, only I can write. The rules that accept posts is that only this public key can write to this relay. But I made it public, so when Tomek starts his client and starts looking at my notes, he could probably reading content from my relay because it's public. Yeah?
So reading is open.
Yeah, this on my private relay, only I can write, but everybody can read. There is also the option that you can run your private relay and use it through a VPN, and then only you can use it. Only you can write, but only also you can read. And this is just to ensure that you write also content to your private. It's like a backup thing that you have at home. Yeah, it's a little bit different. So if you don't want to run your own relay, or if you don't have expertise to set it up at home, you don't have to rely on other people's relays. You can run your own relay on some infrastructure. There is some services, some web services that offer this service, and you can start your own relay and have your own relay, but in infrastructure servers of somebody
You can customize
else.
logic. What do you accept?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a fine quote, similar to the Bitcoin, that not your keys, not your coins. It's not your relay, not your node. That's quite interesting. And of course, everything is open source. Anybody can contribute, and yeah, it's cool.
Another question: do we have some developers here? Hands up. 1, 2, 2.5, 2.7. Okay. Because we have real estate agents there. He's a relay estate agent.
So, in around December last year, Jack Dorsey, which is the guy that created more or less with a few guys other, but the guy from Twitter that left Twitter, he was always this guy that was looking to replace Twitter with something more open. As you know, he's a known Bitcoiner and he's quite freedom-oriented guy, and he has a lot of money thanks to Twitter, and he usually invests in some projects that he finds interesting. And I think it was more or less around December that he decided to give a bunch of Bitcoin to a few people involved in several initiatives. One of them was Nostr, and that created a boom. So people had some Bitcoin to start spending time developing things. And because it's just JSON text format, it's very, very simple and fast to develop. So there was a very big boom of apps and web pages and a lot of stuff happening in Nostr from the beginning of the year.
And often there were these booms in the history of Nostr. There is really just maybe 25 million created pubkeys with BIOS, so not many users. But these booms also happen when something wrong, as I mentioned earlier with some authoritarian countries, that when something wrong happens with regular social media.
Yep.
So when Elon Musk was confirmed to take over Twitter, then very quickly Nostr amount of users went up. When Elon Musk changed his name to X, also lots of when they closed APIs for Twitter, then the same day, like lots of people, okay, I'm moving to Nostr, I'm giving up.
Yeah, usually when a celebrity gets closed account on Twitter, and it's happening more and more recently, usually it's an escape route to.
I mean, there was like Rumble, there was like Trump opened his truth, so like also big names are recognizing problem with social networks, and it will be Nostr in the next cycle of banning Trump.
Yeah, so for example, from the top of my head, Edward Snowden was one of the known person that changed to Nostr, or maybe not changed, but started using also Nostr, also to be able to.
And there is no ads, no sponsored posts like on Twitter. You can use Twitter, but content there. I hope, like in the breaks, we will install maybe some clients. But if you browse content, if you follow people, most of people are Bitcoiners as for now. So the content is a bit better than an average on Twitter.
Yes. So. As you remember from this architecture, that a lot of relays, a lot of clients, this causes one interesting thing, which is that a lot of complicated logic is on the client side to decide what content to get, to decide what content to show. And this means that clients are not so stupid, so simple as a traditional social network client. So if you have a Twitter client, it's very simple. It's the logic that it has on the app. It's very simple. It just makes some API calls to the server and gets the data and shows. It's only a UI logic. But clients on Nostr have to make much more complicated decisions and make more complicated operations.
And some of them, they're already working quicker than Twitter does.
Yeah. So a lot of new clients happened from the start of the year. And which is a good thing. It's so many clients, and just for a normal person, it just feels that so many. Which one I choose? It's so many choices. Yeah.
Okay, so now guys, pick yours And at the end, we will install. Each of you will get your Nostr, generate your keys profile just to check it out.
So that
Pick which name you like the most, and remember it. So at the end, we can install it in your App Store.
it also depends on what platform, yeah. But so
Some of them are only iOS, but
yeah. Can you raise hands who is on iPhone?
3 iPhoneers.
3, 4.
This is hacker space,
5.
but
Yeah. So I assume that the rest is on Android.
so iPhone
Yeah,
could
so
use Damus.
Some of the clients are only iOS. One very famous that received a lot of money from Jack was Demos. It's, I think, one of the most famous in iPhone. There are web ones that are just
You can try
pages.
Primal, but just Google it, not Google Play, but just Google website primal.net. There is
So
download.
these are names of clients. This one is the one that in Android has most features, is known for.
And very often it's good to
feature.
download them like directly from GitHub or from the website of client producers, because as we saw with the example of Damus, they banned the possibility of generate Lightning invoices within an app because Apple thought, okay, we have a monopoly of payments on payments in apps.
Don't spoil
I don't spoil it. Sorry.
So the fact that many clients exploded and was created doesn't mean that they are good. They have a lot of.
How many is open source?
I think most of them, almost everyone, I think. But doesn't mean that they are good. I mean,
Yes, but
If
you
you
have access to your keys. It's
yeah, you can.
your clients.
Yeah, you can use a bunch of them and choose which one is developing. Yeah. So, for example, I was using in Android. I was using this Amethyst, which is the one that has more features. But what happened? I have Android phone which is 2 years old, so it's not very old phone. And this client, maybe because it has too many features, it's not smooth. If you're scrolling, just so it's not a pleasant experience. So I spent some days looking at the code and trying to find how to fix this code. Yeah, but the reason that this was happening, it's so basic in the decision process of building the app that it would require a complete refactor of the app. So I gave up. Another client that started to be implemented in Android is Primal. Primal received in funding received $1 million. So they have a lot of money for developing, and I thought maybe if I join as a contributor, I can help make things get faster, because it was very basic. It did not have many features implemented. So I spent some time contributing to Primal. There were some features that I was able to put through, but the fact that they received this $1 million, and the guy that is running Primal is just hiring programmers. So the programmers that he hired, they are working in this project like a 9-to-5 job. So it's open source, so you can contribute, but as you try to contribute to Primal, you are treated as somebody that is stealing your job. So it was not a very pleasant experience. I was able to put some things in Primal, but after some time I gave up because it was just too much hassle, too much. Yeah. We do this not because it's easy, but because we thought it would be easy. It's not easy to write a client in this Nostr protocol. So there are many challenges, a lot of things to do and to fix until this becomes more usable as clients. So other thing that you might notice is because you only have your private key, there are no things like unique identifiers, like in traditional social networks. You don't have a unique nick.
Basically, your ID looks like NPU B45XW321, like a long string of
this is your public
characters.
key, and you can publish some events which says, my name is something. But there is no guarantee that other person with another key does not use this name. So there are no uniqueness in the protocol.
There is uniqueness, but it's just too big uniqueness to remember
to the key, yeah. So a traditional profile, as you are used to in traditional Facebook and social networks.
So like he wants to put his name, Fernando. How can I find him?
Yeah, but
Like, where is
there can be thousands of Fernandos, and which one it is? You have to check the private key, the public key, which is difficult, yeah, because it's just a long, complicated group of letters, and yeah. So one funny thing that this creates, so they came up with an idea that how do you verify a profile in Nostr? So there is this NIP05 which says that, okay, we connect the key to a file on a domain. So if you control this domain, of course it can be your private domain, or if it can be some service that somebody offers as this verification. If you put your public key on this domain, you can then use some identifier at this domain. So for example, this, you have the identifier Jeff, and it's connected to the domain amazon.com. So how do we know if this is really Jeff Bezos? Well, if it's verified, it means that this public key, so this is the public key here, this public key was able to put some file on the domain amazon.com with his name Jeff.
But on the roots,
It's not important. It's not important. That's not important. So this of course is fake, and as you can see here, he exploited a bug that existed in this client. So this client was showing this check, this verified, but was not checking the domain. So it was misleading people. Yeah. So this is also a very funny joke that I'm verifying my identity, Jeff at Amazon. If you cannot see it, because if you are not using this client, if you are using a client that did the verification right, you are seeing that this is wrong. It's not verified. If you do not see it, go to Primal, and in Primal it showed. So it just showed that there was a bug on this client Primal. Yeah. But so basically, if you want to verify your profile, you can do it just connecting to a domain. You have to put some file on some domain, either your own, if you host your own.
Later, for example, if you compromise your keys and you generate new keys because, I don't know, you use the client which is not trusted, you pasted your keys there and somebody stole it and basically can say it's you. So you want to say that, okay, this is new me with the new keys. You can move this NIP05 verification to these new keys?
No, because this is connected to the public key. So this is a problem with Nostr, which is not resolved yet. The problem of what if I lose my keys? But this is also a problem with Bitcoin, as you are aware. Yeah? You have to really take responsibility in keeping your keys safe, which might be harder than in Bitcoin, because in Bitcoin you can use a hardware wallet, you can use cold wallet. Here,
but still, you trust somebody that built this wallet, that built this app, that built this treasure, that you give it's your private keys. And same in Nostr, you also need to trust some software that you use, whether Primal, if you go on website, you either use it or use some extension that signs the events for you, and it's not, you're sure that it doesn't live there. So it's kind of like a hardware wallet in web.
Yeah, there are some projects to make hardware wallets also to signing events on Nostr. So you connect it to the USB and the browser connects and asks for signing. So there
is also another, so if you want, for example, to somehow store Bitcoin and Nostr in the same place, there is another NIP that lets you generate your Nostr keys with your master key from Bitcoin. So if you have your seed from Bitcoin, you can basically use this number to generate your new Nostr identity.
A, 10 minut, okej. Okay. Dobra.
Kamera to się nie jest otwarta w ogóle.
Bo jest na prośbę.
Okej, super.
So, another interesting thing that happens in Nostr, because it was invented by developers that were working in Bitcoin, were working in Lightning, it's very, very, as you see, the keys that are used are the same algorithm for generation as Bitcoin. And other thing that happened some time ago was something that I think a lot of people wanted to have in Twitter, which is just I see some tweet from some guy, I really like it, I want to give some value. I want to pay some in some currency, ideally Bitcoin. But of course, Twitter never accepted to.
But there are still rumors whether there are like betting markets.
Yeah, probably Dogecoin. Or
that you can bet whether Twitter implements Dogecoin or Bitcoin this year or next year.
Yeah, so in Nostr, there was an IP that specified how to send lightning payments, which later become known as zaps. So if you are scrolling Nostr, if you see a post that you really like, you can zap it. You can send it some small amount of sats, and this is very interesting concept because until now, when you were scrolling your social media, you saw something that you like. What you would usually do? You would like, right? The like is costless. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just the time that you spend clicking. It does not cost anything in real money. Yeah? And these zaps are other way of saying, I really like this content. I don't just click like, I pay some sats, some Bitcoin portions to really mean that I really like this content. So this starts to be another way of finding out which content is really, really worth, because a lot of people paid, gave some small amounts, and the posts that generate the most amounts, there are a big chance that there are something interesting to look at. So this creates very, very interesting dynamics of
It's also incentivize the better content creation in the world. Because it opens new monetization models, and once we go away from the ad monetization, where basically you need to have a clickbait, watch ad, and it doesn't matter what's the content inside. And now when the content is so closely connected with a value transfer, it means that it has to actually have value for it, so people pay for it. So if you think of it, it should make the content creators to produce actual value, not clickbaits.
Yeah, so as you might aware, most things in the world today work on an advertisement model, which is corrupt incredibly. It's really parasitic. And this is an alternative, yeah? You can decide to publish your content in Nostr, and people that will like it will decide to give some value for it. It's an alternative. Let's see how it plays out, yeah? So, yeah, Bitcoin fixes everything. And so what happened? It happened some very interesting thing. This Damos client, which is only on iOS, was making these zaps. And they were on the test flight, and they wanted to get on the App Store. So the main app store that Apple distributes their applications. And when they were reviewing this Damos client, they came to the conclusion that, you are receiving payments for content. You should use our payment network, Apple payment network. For every app that you put on the store, you have to use their payments, which of course they take a 15% cut if you are a small app. And if I'm not wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, if you are a really big app, they take 30%. So it's completely theft, right?
So now in any content monetization models, we have so many intermediaries, whether it's an app store, whether it's a Visa, whether it's another payment processor plugin on the website that takes a cut on it and can also cut you off. And in this way, you have content and consumer directly connected with peer-to-peer payment method.
Yeah, so there was a big fight, a big exchange of mailing between the main developer of this Damos and the guys at Apple. And unfortunately, he was not able to win this war, so he decided to remove the zapping from his app, able to be on the App Store. Because otherwise, if he's not on the App Store, how else would he distribute his app? You guys know any method to install an app on iPhone that does not require going on the App Store? It's very, very difficult. It's theoretically possible, but it's very difficult. So that means that he lost this battle. Yeah. And the Amethyst guy from Android was a bit like, oh, if Apple went for demos, for not allowing apps, we are probably next, because he was also distributing his app through the Google Android Play Store or whatever it's called. But of course, on Android, you always have the option that you just simply install the APK, the application. You don't need the store to install it. So it's a little bit different from Apple. It's a big difference, yeah.
Can it be stopped by Google? With some Android updates that, okay, and with the next updates?
Well, if you use Android, which has Google base system, yeah, it probably can be stopped. I imagine that is possible. Of course, you always have the option of installing some of these OSs, which are Google free, some Graphene. I still don't have many experience, but I plan to research this more. Graphene OS and Calyx OS, something like this. So you have the option of using a phone with Android, which is not Google, does not keep you in prison. Yeah? So what are the other ways to install apps? There is this interesting store which is open and free, Optanium. You just say, where is the original place where the code is stored? Usually it's a GitHub repository. You just place this GitHub repository and it takes care of downloading updates. So I recommend it. You can always go on GitHub, and there is also F-Android. Yeah, this is too much. So what kind of people hang out on Nostr?
Well, mostly Bitcoiners today.
Yeah, it's
Tech-savvy
mostly
people.
Bitcoiners.
Like, there is some bunch of people who are like private freaks, and they are even sometimes like not anti-Bitcoiners, like from the left side, who were using some Mastodon or Blue Sky before, and they were just trying to find an alternative from Twitter. But still, majority of them is Bitcoiners.
So here, for example, an experiment. Some guy made same post on several social medias, and the reactions that he received. So you see, he has quite a lot of followers on Twitter, and not so many on Nostr, but the reactions was, in terms of percentage, was much bigger. So yeah, it's much more pure and more genuine, the reactions that happen on Nostr, in my opinion.
I mean, it's difficult to use most of these apps, so even scrolling is an effort. So
Yeah.
to like, it's not a free job. It's not that easy, like in Twitter.
Yeah, and so also there was a funny phenomenon that, for example, there was this OnlyFans, 2 minutes, okay, OnlyFans girls that were censored, and they found out, oh, in Nostr nobody will censor, so they came to Nostr. There are these waves of people coming when they find out that in Nostr they can post whatever they want. And finally, this is a client that I decided to write because I came to the conclusion that there is no acceptable good client to use nowadays on Android, and I want to be able to use Nostr. So I decided to start writing my own client. It's written on this Flutter language. Language is Dart. The framework is Flutter, and is able to generate codes for a lot of platforms. So it's like, theoretically, ideally, write once, run everywhere. So yeah.
So if you have Androids, find Diana on GitHub.
Yeah, we are
on website. You can also try yana.do, but the web client is not the main product, I guess.
Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Better if you have Android.
But
yes.
if you have more questions, or if you want to hear more,
I hope we can
find us in the end.
Bring some new users to Nostr.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was intro.
Maybe some questions. One or 2 minutes for questions.
How relays talk with each others?
Relays usually don't talk with each other.
So only clients talk with relays, but how another clients know about posts from another relays?
Well, you have to use the same relays. So that's why most people use something like 10 or 15 relays to write.
Okay, so relays are public and clients connect to all relays, or how is...
No, you can decide which relays. Usually it's like between 10, something like that.
Okay.
But also there is this that you can publish, and you can do this in as much relays as possible. You can publish your list of relays. You say, my content, if for anybody that wants to follow me...
Relays have lists public another relays to
Relays have lists of my relays. I say, this is my relays. If you want to follow my content, go to this relays.
Okay, but another people who connect to what relays?
They decide. Usually if you start a new client, they have a predefined list of relays. But you can alter this and you can change.
Now there is like popular relays that when I use Nostr and I think, okay, let's refresh my relay list. I'm like, okay, let's use Damus because for iPhone users, let's use Primal because they also run the relay and like few others. I also use like paid relay, so I paid like in Lightning some sats, and I have promise from them, right, that they store my data and that they will also, so that's also how relays talk to each other, that they will also broadcast this my nodes to most popular relays. So I know that I'm discoverable, like they make sure for me for that.
Yeah, as I said, I run my own private relay, which is public for reading. Yeah, so I write to my own relay and I publish the list to people that want to follow me that this relay is where you get my content. So you go there.
Publish your public IP with 43 port, yes?
Yeah.
And
It's
to others?
you can also use also Tor, theoretically, but it's a pain. It's a pain.
Not combining it with Tor.
You can combine it, yeah.
Fully anonymous.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. Yeah, one thing that you must remember, if you are not using, you should use a VPN. Yep. Otherwise, every question that you go to a relay to get content, they can log your IP. You have no sure that they're not logged. So this is one important thing. You should use a VPN, or you can also use Tor, but Tor is painful.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about that. When you have a Brave, you can use the Onion router through Brave. Of course, it's not fully protected. You should use VPN alongside of it. Mm-hmm. But how about making some kind of add-on to Nostr, making it
well, it's client side. I think some clients they have
It depends
option.
on the client. If you have a client that supports Tor, you can use it with Tor. There's no problem.
There are clients that have enabled Tor, and then like you make sure that they communicate through Tor to the relays.
Can you create proxies that connect to several relays, and then you just talk to the proxy and you are anonymized by this?
Yeah, of course.
Caching.
Yeah, that's what Primal does. Primal tries to make the experience faster. So it caches all stuff from a lot of relays, and their client goes to the caching. But this introduces a centralization weakness. So everything has its upsides and downsides.
Sorry, the algorithm for sorting or the showing, not showing.
It's up to the client.
It's up to the client, to the relays, and if you have a proxy like that, it could force you some content.
So Primal, in their caching mechanism, they have also a trending. And
if your relay is stopped, another relays have replicated this data from your relays or not?
It depends on the relay, usually not. So the usual way that it works is that your client writes to a bunch of relays. When you post something, you write to a bunch of relays. Yeah. Okay. And then, people read from them. Yeah.
Okay, last question. So, because
the relays are incentivized some kind.
That's one of the challenge. How to find a business model for the relays. Yeah. That's a very important thing. Yeah. But it's an open free market, so the best idea will win. Yeah.
There are like umbrella apps that let you run easily your relay if you run your Raspberry Pi or some server.
But if you want to run a relay, sometimes you can get some incentivized.
You mean to be paid to run your own relay? Yeah, that's a completely acceptable business plan.
You can run a relay for Warsaw people, for example, and promise for all the Warszawians.
Yeah, for example, I work in FilmWeb, and I started a relay for users of FilmWeb. So everybody can do whatever they want.
Okay, guys, Staszek's telling us that it's the end of us.
Yeah, thank you for
guys.
listening, and I hope you learned something.
In the break, you can try some Nostr relays, Nostr clients. There is several apps. We are open for helping you in the break.
Dziękuję za wykład. Mam nadzieję, że się podobało. Kto wszystko zrozumiał? Jest przynajmniej jedna osoba. I asked if there is a person that understands everything. Yeah. So it's time to install the what? Who is using Nostr? Few people. Sure, great. Who want to use? Great. So, could you go to the info? A w międzyczasie chcę podziękować Infowi, który tam siedzi za kamerą i nagrywa ten event. Jeszcze Ani, która gdzieś się ukrywa. Tu się ukrywa. Tu na widowni się ukrywa, która pomogła zorganizować też ten event. Dziękuję. Możemy poklaskać.
Check. Claps for you. There is a laptop from...
I powoli się będziemy podłączać do kolejnej prezentacji.
Works well. You good?
Plus, świetnie. So the next speaker will be talking about the Ordinals.
That's right.
Nice hat.
It's right there.
And his name is Tomas.
That's correct.
And where are you from, basically?
Slovakia.
Slovakia. It's quite interesting because, in my opinion, Slovakian is most similar language to Polish in whole Europe, even much more similar than the Czech.
I would say so.
Yeah, and if I listen the Slovakian radio, I understand everything, absolutely.
Yeah, I understand you well when you were speaking Polish.
Yeah.
Is Czech closer or Polish?
Cool, Czech. We spent a long time together and many words are the same.
Sure.
So, but yeah,
So
we're all very close.
Bravo for Tomas. And
Thanks for having me.
start.
Yeah.
I get you already get the mic.
I hope.
The same in Slovakia.
Yeah, sure. I hope you all still have the energy. I will, I mean, probably some people already used this joke, but I know there is a pizza, so I will do my best to not make you want the pizza more than the presentation I'm having. I came to speak about Ordinals. It's a social protocol. It's not a consensus on Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't know what Ordinals are, doesn't care. Bitcoin only cares about private keys. But it's a fascinating social protocol because it, for a moment, made a lot of headlines. A lot of people were angry, blah, 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 why they're doing it. But Bitcoin is permissionless. That's why we love these systems, that no one can tell us what we can do, no one can tell us what...
Ask if anyone was just angry about that.
I mean, first I was wondering how many people have heard about Ordinals. So that would be my first question. Do you know Ordinals? Okay, semi-decent. And how many people of you, were angry about what Ordinals are doing? Are you still angry? Well, I will show to you the results. Not many people speak about it. Everyone is angry at drive chains now. So like that's the current. It remains to be good. I mean, even Giacomo and BTC Prague had a really good conversation. Like, Ordinals are retarded. In Riga, he was presenting that they're dead. But I will show you some good graphs that ordinals are very far from that. And there are new protocols being developed on top of it, and a lot of more experimentation with artists that are coming on Bitcoin blockchain are happening right now. So there will be a bit of history, a bit of fun, a bit of learning, but mostly just graphs and open questions and maybe your views on what is actually happening and what we can do about it. So I'm going to try to push this. Cool. So from historical side, a lot of people said ordinals are digital graffiti. Satoshi was likely somehow a frame painter in the first block. So the very cool thing with leveraging OP return was that you can insert data into the hash of the block. And he did so, or they did so eventually, of like cementing why we are doing this. It's a financial revolution. So that was also used in the future few years later as a sort of celebration of Len Sassaman, a very powerful coder who has passed away by his friend and in a very complicated way. They had to send Bitcoin to public addresses and use opcode, OP return, but back in the day it was 20 bytes only, not 80 bytes as today. So they had to create this amount of addresses, public key addresses, around 40 of them, and eventually it costed 1 BTC back in the day to create this beautiful ASCII artwork that you can still, if you're running your full node, you can see it inside of the chain.
Can you come back?
To Satoshi.
Why Satoshi did not use that full space? Why there is like random characters?
I think back the random, that's a good question. I mean, I suppose that is also because of the 20 byte op code limit. So it was just, randomly generated. I would not feel confident to answer.
Just binary.
Yeah.
The rest of the block.
Right. I wouldn't.
It's empty space, just put it with the data.
But he could say he was the only one mining it, so he could fill it all.
Yeah, but this is the message what can pass through you, so I think this is like the rest of the block.
Yeah, I would say so. So I think the opcode was 20 bytes was only this part. I just believe that now we have 80 bytes in that opcode OP return. It's still being used currently. Miners are providing the messages there, for example. And I believe open timestamps work on a similar way that is leveraging OP return. Recently in Guatemalan election, it was very cool. So yeah, history and ordinals are in a way very familiar to the proposal of colored coins. One of the early colored coin supporters were Vitalik Buterin or Bitcoin Jesus. So quite.
Mastercoin Foundation.
Yeah, pretty much. Also, like different people were excited about it, but no one was willing to do anything about it. So they just went through different careers and created their own shitcoins and whatever. But it's a reinvention. But it is now more feasible and financially doable in a way because the SegWit block space is discounted. It's significantly discounted, and with the Taproot implementation, the discount is 4 times as larger as it was before. So eventually, as ordinals sort of, and the ordinal inscriptions, so putting bytes or data into chain is currently feasible financially or economically because of SegWit and Taproot ultimately. It was possible back in the days too. It's also possible to actually, if I'm correctly understanding Blue Matt's statement, remove private keys that you are sort of propagating around the network and put the bytes of your, I don't know, picture, whatever sort of a picture, like lower bytes, instead of private key. So it was always possible since the very early creation, but it wasn't feasible. It was just not worth it. It was not worth the money. If it's worth the money now, it's really a subjective decision. You don't have to do it. Again, it's a permissionless protocol. You just do whatever you want. But this was the inception of how inscriptions, so ultimately data that is written into Bitcoin's blockchain, has been created. But ordinal theory isn't about inscription. Ordinals themselves were about rarity or sort of way of serializing Satoshis, atomic units of Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't know Satoshis. We've created a social protocol that, 100 million Satoshis is one Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't, it's just only Bitcoin. So Luke Dash Jr. is very well spoken on Twitter that doesn't exist, it's a scam, blah, blah, blah. But we have hundreds and hundreds of social protocols, layers, in our life that we adhere to and we believe in, and they are just fine, they're not scams, it's just what this group of people say it is, and it is. It's just there, they believe in it, and that's it. But ultimately, ordinals were built on top of previous experimentation. They wanted to showcase the fun of collecting specific Satoshis. So this is the only slide, this is one of the few of the works that were put into the Bitcoin's blockchain via that inscription method of, it's also a JSON, very simple JSON of an envelope, leveraging sort of recognition method. So if you are running ORD protocol on top of Bitcoin, you can read that there is an inscription, so byte-sized data connected to the specific Satoshi, like the unique identifier of a Satoshi. There was the first one. This is one of the art projects we were supporting or helping with. And for example, Bitcoin Magazine recently did a Julian Assange 4 megabyte block. I will look at that later, but ultimately the whole Bitcoin block was essentially filled with a PNG of the cover of Bitcoin Magazine. So no other transactions got into it. Yeah, stepping back a bit from like speaking about inscription, speaking about the Satoshis, this is the only slide that contains really information to take into account. So Casey, the creator of Ordinals, taught first and foremost about ordinal theory, and that means that we create a system where sats have their number, a sequence number, a location, a latitude. It could be block and their location in a block. And it also works in a ordering system called first in, first out. So the system can recognize how such Satoshis, the atomic units, are moving across the transactions. So if you are sending Bitcoin from A to B, the Satoshis that are in it are recognized by the ORD implementation how they are flowing. So we know which Satoshi is what. And a lot of people say that, okay, it's sort of creating problems with fungibility. Bitcoin should be whoever says Bitcoin is. In a way, this method, if you don't run the protocol, isn't affected. So me running ORD protocol, sure, I recognize there is Satoshi, that this Satoshi contains, let's say, an inscription of Julian Assange, but you don't care about it. You running your own full node doesn't impact the fungibility of Bitcoin at all. I do, I believe in it, it's a social phenomenon. If he believes in it, we can send Julian Assange from A to B and they recognize it, but your nodes, they have no idea about the fungibility of us believing that this Satoshi is unique and special and has a location, has a place. With that location and the SAT nomenclature or sequencing, there is a creation of the rarity index. So most of the Satoshis from all Satoshis in existence or planned existence until 2132, the last Bitcoin mined, are common. The first Satoshi of a block is an uncommon, and there we have also rare epics. Like rare is the first Satoshi that happens or is in place after the difficulty adjustment. An epic is the one when we have a halving period. So it's the first Satoshi after halving. It's an epic Satoshi. They actually have a market right now. So $200 is for uncommon Satoshi. And the Julian Assange is actually written or inscribed the bytes of it to this Satoshi, but it's not really. It's just a social agreement we have. We or running people have a social agreement that this Satoshi is associated with this blob of bytes. Nonetheless, if you're running a full archival node of your Bitcoin client, this Julian Assange is also in your node. I mean, Luke Dash created Ordis Respector, sort of like a spam filter, he called it. So maybe you can run it and scrape that. But ultimately, are you running a full node then? Questionable. I'm running it. The Julian Assange is there. You don't have to care if it's connected to this uncommon Satoshi that happened in 2010 or what time. I do see that. I approve it because of how I see the social construct and the social phenomena. We just differ. it's a permissionless system. Coming further, so as I said, inscriptions, the bytes in chain, so us taking a picture together, we can use the JSON envelope to put them into a specific Satoshi that we decide is a nice one. Maybe it's a Satoshi from block 777777, and it's the Satoshi located in here because, let's say, there was a meetup happening in Warsaw. At that precise moment, the Satoshi was mined. We want to take it, and we will make a shared picture associated to that Satoshi. And the data is written into the Taproot script path. And as I said before, it makes it economically feasible. It's just sort of affordable. However, that whole, let's say, Julian Assange picture was probably $150,000. Because to mine a whole block, it's around $100,000, $200,000 in Bitcoin fees and the reward. So it's still quite expensive. And when you are putting even small bytes of data in, there is an assumption that you are investing into that security of the chain. So imagine you have documents of this whole building, and you are able to ensure that they won't ever be lost. You just take them and you can put them into Bitcoin blockchain. Pay for it significantly, but for certain you are that these 40,000 nodes around the world, let's say half of it, are going to run with the architectural documents of this building. So whatever happens to your computer, whatever happens to the, I don't know, office that is taking care of these plans, you don't care. It's in Bitcoin blockchain. Is that going to disappear? I doubt so. You just paid for it significantly, but you paid for the security of having your file there forever. And in a way, having a possession to it, because the private key to the UTXO itself, where the Satoshi is located in the location, the latitude, is in your ownership. So sure, you can say, oh, I could just copy your document. Well, sure, you can have it, but I do possess it via my private key. Nonetheless, inscriptions and inscriptions in Ordinals theory are ultimately immutable on-chain censorship-resistant digital artifacts. Well, if one speaks about the Uyghur movements and the problems they're having there, or the practices of sustainability and the record keeping of information in countries that have problems with censorship resistance, maybe this is an attempt how we can counteract it. Someone can just write down long strings of information protected forever in Bitcoin's chain. Sure, you don't have to recognize it, but the data is there. It's just we can see it, we can retrieve it, and we can also use that for transfers and exploration of new ways on how art itself could be built in the future. I would stop for a minute. Do you have any question on top of the ordinal theory, how inscriptions work and what ordinals are? Because I'm going to move to protocol itself and what happened to Bitcoin after this inception. All right, I'm not sure if that's confident.
Is there a measure, like was the market cap of that?
We'll reach that. It's just that I didn't want to go into numbers, specifics, data on, still wanted to go back with the original proposition because it's 1 year now. In September, Casey actually did launch beta. In February, it was alpha. In February, it was, well, it's still alpha. But he really sort of shared it with his friends in September. In February, it was like, tsh, boom, it's out. And from then, it sort of created a wave and aggression from maximalists who said, oh no, you are removing my correctly paid transactions from chain. But these are also correctly paid transactions in chain. Sure, maybe it's not payment for your beer, but...
What's being described there?
Pardon?
What's being described there now?
Well, we can open an indexer and take a look. Well, I don't run it.
Like actually, like, I don't know, SKR or links to images or?
I would like to see that future, but for example, we'll also see that majority of the UTXO growth that is happening is because of shitcoins, BRC20. Like a stupid technology, absolutely crazy to think about that.
They would have the same explanation as you have with Ordinals.
Well, it's permissionless. If you want to put string of JSON data and pay fee for that and send it to the miner, that's how the incentives work. There is no spam.
So there is more BRCs than?
I don't know. I presume that most of the transactions in numerical count is BRC. In weight of the transaction, so byte size.
So I don't know what's the difference between BRC and...
Well, it's just a standard, some random pseudonymous person created in building altcoin to currencies on top of Bitcoin by creating it wasn't even an envelope really, it was just JSON string. This is the token name, this is the amount of it, and this is something. To me, it's nuts. I mean,
when there was the biggest peak of fees in the mempool, so what was causing this? Was
shit.
Ordinals or was this BRC?
Well, questionable. I would concur that most, because we will reach that, I think it's the next graph here, we can see that almost 70% of all transactions happening on Bitcoin blockchains are inscription based. And I would say, honestly, count-wise, it's probably BRC20, issuance and transfers and whatever. It's just literally degeneration.
Just like BSV.
What do you mean?
Just like in the BSV.
But no one is using BSV.
I know, but there is a situation like that.
What do you mean?
There is not that data that you're able to use, but they are there.
Well, no one is using BSV. Everyone is using Bitcoin right now because the fees are showing for that. If it's a transaction that an honest individual is paying fee for, it's free market that we adhere to in libertarian system. That is the system that Satoshi envisioned. Sure, we might disagree on the purpose of the transaction, but it's freedom to act and freedom to transact too. And I personally don't agree with BRC20, which I'm actually excited that today or yesterday Casey created a new blog post about using UTXOs itself as a tokenization platform. Because sure, Taproot assets, where they are. RGB, who is he using? Like Liquid? I've been using Liquid and SideSwap for years, but it's me and 3 other people. Mostly the people I spoke to in the Asian markets are extremely excited about it. They love speculation. Sure, you have gambling banned in China. You have these things banned in China. You can't ban freedom. You just can't. So they like to speculate. They like to have fun. It's annoying, sure, but the security budget questions, hard to raise now. Like, why are you going to speak about security budget question? Sure, there could be conversation. Where, how? There is no way to talk about security budget problem if there is this. And it's just what validates Lightning Network usability. And I'm a big proponent of Lightning Network. In the conference we are having in Amsterdam, there's going to be a Lightning panel with Lisa, Lightrider, and yeah, it's going to be essentially validating that Lightning is meaningful. We need Lightning because if people in China are degenerate, so what? We're just going to pay for our beer in Lightning. That's why it's for. Let me go back and circle a bit into this so you can see what is inside of the indexer, because if you're running OR, you can also run an indexer on top of it so you can review all the data. Ultimately, the actual inscription, so taking bytes, our picture is put into the chain, a specific ID, address, and possession, so public key in control of it. The output, you can choose the output size, how much Satoshis are located in the input to the output. The problem recently is that many of them are creating like, literally does limit outputs. We'll go back to that. I think that is a significant problem. There is a way to address that. This is a funny one. What SAT was chosen for that specific, that is the sequencing. This is the idea that Casey proposed. He didn't propose BRC20. He didn't really propose even inscriptions, but they came with the handbook. What he proposed that, oh, this SAT is the first, where are we? Block, this is the first SAT of this block. That's the ideation. It's essentially when people like banknotes with American presidents from 1930s and they keep them at home, you can keep a Satoshi because you get more married at that point. Your child was born. You put a picture of your child. You have the private key of its possession, but everyone can also see your child located and chained forever if you're running your archival node, which I'm running few. Coming back, timestamp Genesis. How much they Genesis type? That's where it's located in latitude, 22% only in uncommon, but yeah, that's how it looked in the mempool. Crazy. It's possible. It happened. We know now that blocks are 4 megabytes in size. Yeah, fee market. under pressure, validates Lightning Network, already touched on that, not gonna open it again. I'm, as I said, huge supporter of Lightning. Lightning is gonna succeed, and I think it's gonna succeed because of the challenges the on-chain activity is posing. Because if you have proposals and technological advancements under threat or under some form of pressure, that's where they showcase. So if you have problems on Lightning, sure, we're gonna address them now. Maybe Taproot Assets, and I was on a call 2 weeks ago on their implementation call, they already have some actual form of functional products. It was Nostr Assets also. I was surprised about some 2 Indian young dudes creating Nostr Assets. Madness, I love it. And that's how we similarly use Nostr, is that the event emission of us inscribing something used one of our relays and was publicly shared. So you can re-verify that us, with our signatures, inscribe the piece of a certain art or a certain object into the chain, but use Nostr as a scaling solution to show openly of our actions. And I see a huge potential in using art creation, provenance, building of art, and Nostr as an interconnectivity tool for scaling this, ultimately. We already spoke about, speaking about the 70% activity, 20% of payments. This is a very unusual setup. So many transactions, very little actual payments coming in. So the truth is you see a lot, but yeah. Super truth is they don't pay that much to the miners. Funny.
So is this in count or in?
Yeah, count. It's count. In weight, I would say smaller, and they don't pay that much. This is, yeah, some people do have problem with that. Back in the times, I did have so too, but again, coming back to the principles of liberty and the freedoms, we have to find a way how individuals in different underprivileged countries might have a chance to run their own systems. If it's the fact that the size of the chain is increasing, sure, it's problematic. There are ways how to lower the block size. They are, sure. Let's talk about it at some stage in the future. But ultimately, we see the chain has grown 5% larger compared to the fact when the inscriptions were or ordinals were released. It's a bit. It's a bit. And you can think whatever you want to think about it. To me, it's an opportunity how to build better, how to create better ecosystems. It's just an opportunity. If you have anything to add to this, cool. UTXO set growth. This is it's a tougher one. It's really significant. And those are mostly those BRC20 tokens, or essentially 366 or 500 sats large UTXOs containing a JSON string. It's gonna cause challenges to the blockchain synchronization at the beginning, the block download essentially, and no computing power verification of the existing UTXO set, because the more of them, the higher computing power needed to verify. But there is, I think, proposal called UTXO, that should simplify the UTXO set validation based on some form of zero knowledge primitives. So again, yeah, we have a problem. The validation is increasing in time. Okay, let's find a solution how to simplify the verification, make it less computer intensive, and find a solution to this. So the freedom to act or to do still remains under this libertarian or liberty-based ideology.
But I think that concerning the validation, the chain validation, using assume valid after a certain period of time, it's not affecting the node.
After a certain, but still, if you run, oh shit, one more slide.
It's in the witness, so it can be ignored if you assume valid at a certain point in time.
The keys are in, the signature is in.
The inscription?
Yeah, this is more about, right. but it still creates the UTXO, right? The address.
Yeah, the
sure.
Of course, but
We've
the application itself you were mentioning, I don't think it's heavily affected if you use the flag assume value.
For the byte size of the inscription, yes, but for the amount of existing UTXOs that are growing, you still need increased computing power. And most of the people are currently dependent on Raspberry Pis, which is ridiculous. We should move into safer workspace environments to running your own nodes. It's just, Raspberry Pis are prone to attacks, hacks, and Umbrella is, by the way, not open source, if Nostr conversation. We have to do something about it. I think Taj Drija proposed Utyrix though, right, dude? I'm happy about this. I'm not sure if you are happy about this. Well, Taproot came. Taproot is actually leveraged by these people. It will help on-chain privacy. It will help on-chain privacy ultimately to an extent, maybe as a trade-off to the fungibility of ours. But I think adoption of Taproot is a positive thing to use compared to, I think, those previous slides which were not as positive. But also, disclaimer, I believe, right, the benefits, the full benefits of Taproot aren't yet realized with multi-signature quorums protecting the privacy of transactions compared to where we want to see it. So adoption is growing, the functionality not yet, soon. And last slide, I think, is, so these are the hard data. We have almost 35 million inscriptions. It was 2 million in February when I was having the first presentation in New York City. 2,000 Bitcoin in fees. That's a lot. And as you see, it's relentless. And if someone says to you, like, ordinals are dead, sure, we can say there's a lot of BRC20, but we are creating an event focused on art. More and more artists from different chains are coming in. More and more developers from different chains are realizing, was Ethereum just a testnet? Always has been. It's useless. It's centralized. It's nothing burger. You have the best chain to use for your digital art needs. And I wanted to mention one thing, that this is our conference that is happening. Scan, take a look. It's Amsterdam in 2 weeks, connected to Bitcoin Amsterdam. Now with implementation of recursive inscriptions, which is something that was released 1 month ago, we can lower the bytes coming in chain when doing inscriptions. So before, when you wanted to do JavaScript or 3JS art, heavily need libraries of JavaScript to get computed to be built, it would be, go probably back again, it would be really expensive to inscribe your work. But with whatever recursion, you can use existing libraries. So imagine you are under this license owner of 3JS, you put it into Bitcoin blockchain, and I can call that library and compute my art. And I can call different set of libraries to create my inscription that is leveraging the existing immutability of Bitcoin's blockchain to pay smaller amount in fees because the bytes of my inscriptions are way, way less in size compared to the past when the recursion didn't exist. And even more and more artists are coming on chain to play with Bitcoin now because they don't have to pay $5,000 to get their JavaScript-based art in. They just use and call the libraries and they pay, let's say, $1,000 to put their artwork in, or $2,000. So there are still some questions unanswered, like provenance that they are working on. So who is a parent, who is a child of the inscription? But the movement that I'm participating on is not the degenerate movement. It's a liberty-oriented freedom to transact movement where art can be stored digitally. Your history can be stored digitally. Receipts of these buildings, pictures, kits connected to specific moment in time, timestamp of history that happened since Bitcoin blockchain existed, and be under your own possession in a social protocol, not Bitcoin's native protocol, not a consensus code, but in a shared agreement between the nodes running ORT on top of Bitcoin's blockchain. That it's there, it's true, you possess it. And yeah, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Good timing, please.
How heavy is to run an ORT node?
How heavy? It's using the, So it's built on top of Bitcoin protocol. So if you have your blockchain in BLK files in your computer, it just verifies them and it indexes them on top. So I think indexing currently would be around, I think, 50 or 100 megabytes on top. So it's not, no, 500 megabytes. Yes, you always have to run your own node if you want to index. But you can inscribe via using someone else's ORD protocol, right? At the beginning it was fun because you got many individuals from Ethereum coming, how can I do it, how can I do it? You need to run Bitcoin node. And we had to explain them how to run Bitcoin node. There was hundreds and hundreds of people coming from different chains, how to run Bitcoin. And there is a measurable fact that we increased node count by 5 to 7% also in that period of February, March, April. Now everyone's using Ordinals bot, OrdZar, different technology, but it's there. And I'm not sure what's the time like, and if there's more questions, I would happily answer them. Please.
I understand that the bytes and the inscription are discounted by a cyclid.
75%.
Exactly, but still the size of a JPEG or something you want to put in
sure.
is quite a lot.
Correct.
Ordinals came out, or inscription came out when there was essentially no activity on the network. You could go with 1 special byte.
Sure.
What if the real financial activity and the fee market will go so high that the price of inscribing something will be putting out of market anyone who wants to put those
good question. It's hypothetical, I suppose. There could be primary effects, secondary effects. Ultimately, the action is to not act. So I, as an artist, probably not going to go and take and do it. Or you find a sponsor. Some artwork, the fine art in traditional world is tens of $millions per piece. Why shouldn't I pay $1 million to put a digital art that will be in possession of someone else that sponsored this artwork to be created? I don't see a problem. It can happen. First, I won't do it because the chain size or the fees are high. Someone is going to support me. Or I will think about means how to lower my byte size. And that is the recursion way.
Yeah, because I see that the concentration of economic activity per byte is superior in the financial activity.
Correct. It is. I don't know by what measure, but that's true.
Yeah, because I can create a large Lightning Network channel that is underpinning millions of dollars transactions. So
correct.
I can pay a huge fee.
Correct.
And I just have a 500 byte transaction there.
Precisely.
When you want to put an image that is, I don't know, half a megabyte, and you need to have much more financial reasons for putting it.
Motivation and incentive, correct.
To me, it's very discouraging, the fact that if you want to inscribe something, you are competing against something which is much more concentrated in financial value per byte.
Yeah.
That's challenging.
It is challenging for artists, and that's why we are trying to help them, show them the ways, and meaningfully do act. Myself and the project we've created was only ASCII art. It was 200 bytes, 300 bytes that we're inscribing. Some people did go with 4 megabytes and pay those $200,000, probably, assumed value. It's just there to act. It's just there for you freely to decide if you want or if you don't want. And if the market actually values it, we might wonder how much real money is in the market of art and how much of that is tax exemptions. I don't want to delve into that topic at all. But there is a lot of capital. And with the NFT craze and sort of digital art craze the last years, I think this is just the beginning, but all of it's going to be sucked into Bitcoin. Because why would you go into IPFS? Why would you trust proof of stake models? It's just reinventing the system. We all know as Bitcoiners that proof of work and this solution is current way how to overcome the overlords of financial sort of takeover. If we can put layers of art, if we can put layers of different experiments, be it social networks, that's something I'm trying to experiment with, and participation activities, and use Nostr on scaling, use other inventions, we might probably succeed in different ways and different selections, different choices. Thank you, Stanisław. Sir.
Thank you for presentation.
Thank you for having me.
It's time for pizza.
Nice.
Yeah, and
How
it's
much
time
did it
for
took you?
beer also.
40 minutes, cool.
It's good enough.
Yeah, I think so. I was hoping for less, actually.
Yes, sure. Thank you for your presentation. You
Thank you for having me. I don't want to break anything, so I'm just gonna...
Dobra, to czas na pizzę. Tam jest piwo, pizza się za
I don't
chwilę
wanna break
pojawi. Lecimy z koksem. Teraz. Cześć. Zaczynamy kolejną część wykładów. Tym razem Tomek opowie o Bitcoin Film Fest. Zapraszam cię, Tomku.
Tak, to znowu ja. Anyone not speaking Polish here? Okay, so English. All right. Hey guys, shalom. So again, who did not yet install any Nostr client since our previous discussion? Who doesn't? No, I'm showing an example. That's how you raise hand. You do it later. Do it later. Our next presentation will be.
After 5 more years.
Our next presentation will be by Pierre, who is also building something on Nostr. As I said, Nostr is not only for social media networks, but it can facilitate some new solutions in other technologies. Another technology that was also on the rise, still is on the rise, and the same period of humanity as Nostr is artificial intelligence. And apparently, probably such networking solution as Nostr can solve some problems of centralization, of computing power regarding AI. So Pierre is also working on some solution like this. But again, to get some connection with you guys, who knows what is Bitcoin halving? Okay, who knows when is it gonna be? When? When? You? Do. I'm not showing it to you. On a certain block, yes. It's not, so there is no date. There is a certain block. It's block 840,000. So for the 4th time in Bitcoin history, the mining reward will be cut in half. That's main feature of Bitcoin. That's why there will be no more Bitcoin after certain halving. So the first rewards was 50 Bitcoins, then 25, then 12.5, then now 6.125, and then at the block 840,000. From this block, the next mining reward will be cut in half. It will be 3 point something Bitcoins per mined block for the computer or the company that would mine it. And it's like Olympics. It's happening every kind of 4 years, and it's a celebration in Bitcoin community. It used to be celebration 3 times already. Now it's a 4th. We don't know when is it, but it's 840 times 2 because it's going to be half, so it's 420. So we're going to do it at 420 on April 20th in Warsaw. The most expected time of halving is April 24th, 26th maybe. You don't know when it's going to be, but that's what we are doing. We're doing European halving party here in Warsaw. Yes, this is a good news because there is one halving party big in Salvador at the beginning of April where most of the Bitcoiners go, but most of the European plebs are coming, and we are inviting for the European halving party April 19, 20, and 21st, together with the Bitcoin Film Fest. And Bitcoin Film Fest 24 is our main festival of Bitcoin Film Fest, the organization that me, Pierre, Shelale, Ada are running, are contributing to, and we try to foster growth of Bitcoin cinema. We think it's already happening, so Hollywood is another industry that should be taken over by a SAT standard, and we are there to help the transition. So we are showing Bitcoin movies, not only documentaries, there will be some fiction movies, there will be some trailers, there will be some YouTube things. So follow us at bitcoinfilmfest.com, and here I'm having a special invite for members of this meetup. You can scan the QR code and leave your email or NostrPub, NPub, to be signed up for the early birds tickets. So in a month we will run early birds sale for tickets for the European Halving Party and Bitcoin Film Fest 24. So please be with us, put it in your calendar already, scan this QR code, sign up for early birds, and hope to see you in April. And this Film Fest happened because on one of the Bitcoin Maxi meetups last year, November, December, I met Pierre, who is apparently a Bitcoin filmmaker. And we thought, like, okay, let's show Pierre's film at the Bitcoin meetup. It was in one bar in Warsaw. It didn't work out, but me and Pierre met, and we got drunk a bit, and we thought, okay, why only one movie? Let's make more movies. And let's call it cinema. And we called it cinema, and we did a film festival in March. And since then, this organization is kind of growing. We were having some activities, not only Bitcoin Film Festival, but few different projects like podcasts, like networking, like news service for the industry of Bitcoin cinema. That's how I met Pierre, and apparently now he is building something called Nostr Eggs, and it's a system of centralizing API calls on the Nostr network. These API calls that could be used for some centralized or not centralized agents of AI. Something complicated, but he would explain you probably better than I would. So please welcome with applause Pierre Corbin.
Thank you. Hi everyone. So I'm going to show some stuff on the screen. I'll just plug in my computer. Okay. So I'm Pierre Corbin. I also organized the Bitcoin FilmFest, but I'm working on something new that is called Nostr Eggs. That's the website. It's going to be, you got the first presentation about Nostr, which was already, I believe, quite, out there. It's very, it's not tangible. Yeah, you really have to use your imagination. So it's the same thing with this, right? Because this is just, Nostr is just one of the technologies that I use, and it's the first time I presented to people this way. So it's exciting to talk about it. Yeah. All right. So you see, build on Nostr 1 egg at a time. Nostr, the image of Nostr is an ostrich, as Fernando is proudly wearing on his T-shirt. Yeah. So we just went with the idea of, an ostrich. What could it be if you have different elements? Let's call them eggs. And each egg is supposed to represent an API, because that's the solution that I've been working on. It's how can we, so an API is an application program interface for people that don't know. It's just a technical term that if you go on whatever website, and you use their interface, you click it, right? There's a user interface. Well, there's the same thing that exists, but for programmers, right? But so instead of being something you click, it's code. But it allows you to interact with this application via their backend application as opposed to a user interface, right? So that's the initial idea, because Nostr, what's great about Nostr is that, it's anonymous, it's directly connected to the Lightning Network, and there's a lot of databases out there that either close their access or limit their access. Think about it this way. Twitter, for example, they limit how much you can use from their API, so how much data you can get. And the reason for that is because it's for free. And if you do too many API calls, well, then it only costs them. It's their servers that are working. And there's no way to make people just pay for it this way. OpenAI are one of the, ChatGPT, the company that did that, they have an API that is, in the world of AI, at least, is the most used. They have like, I think per day, 2 million calls minimum, right? And so these guys, they innovated on that, because whenever you make a request to their API, so you say like, give me an answer to whatever question, and then you choose what model you use. Well, when you get the response from OpenAI, they also give you how much it costs in dollars. It's like $0.002, right? But of course, they use fiat. So you have to give them your credit card. And at the end of the month, so every single question that you ask, you're going to pay, but it's being accumulated, and at the end of the month, they charge your credit card. I think it's complicated, and it requires people's identification. I think if Twitter were to integrate with I give the example of Twitter, but it can be anything, were to integrate with something that uses the Bitcoin Lightning Network that allows for microtransactions, well then you can monetize any database very easily, right? Because every time someone uses your database, they pay. And they pay like whatever amount you give, right? Like 10 Satoshis, right? Literally fractions of cents, right? So that's what I'm trying to solve here. And unlock the future, your portal to decentralized and anonymous services powered by microtransaction. Because the idea is that decentralized why? If you have data that you want to hold somewhere, well, with Nostr Eggs, you can hold it on Nostr, and it can be on whatever relay you choose, and it can be multiple relays, right? So decentralized and anonymous because it's using your Nostr public key. And it can be a different public key for whatever application you're building. In fact, that's even the way it's supposed to work by default. And if a user chooses to, he can use every single time a different Nostr public key, because I don't care about their ID, right? I don't care who they are. It doesn't matter. I just want to know that if they ask for some data, then they can pay me, right? Okay, so I think maybe I got some side, because this is just the website. It's just, it looks nice and sexy. Securely private, lightning fast, and high flexibility. There's two elements. One of them we call the nests, which is data architecture. And for now, we have one working example, which is, without getting too complicated, but in the world of AI, what you use text, like if you chat with ChatGPT, you use some text. But if you use some AI tool that is connected to a particular database or like information, like I built Talk to Satoshi, which was a regroupment of different Bitcoin books, all in one place, and you can ask it a question and it will answer based on the information there, not what OpenAI thinks, but really based on the information from these books. Well, you have to vectorize this information, so change it from text to numbers, just to get the meaning, and you have to store it somewhere. So that's the first thing we did in these nests. And then the eggs is the fact that, once you have this nest that is a store of data, well, with the eggs, you can interact with it. So the APIs are what we call the eggs, right? And so the one that we have right now, we have multiple ones, but they're all around AI because that's just, since a hot topic, that's kind of, the first thing that we want to be able to implement. And it allows you to just, query OpenAI with a vector store, and you can choose the language model. There's all of this like fine tuning and parameters that you usually can do when you build this with these complex functions. Well, it's really simplified here, and I'll show you how simple. I don't know if is there any programmer here? Yeah, okay. So I can like briefly show some stuff, because then that's just the Nostr SDK, and in fact, that kind of just shows how you get started. Install it, import, that's JavaScript. And then you just create a new instance, just giving, you give your private key or public key, and another like just Nostr wallet connect URL that allows to connect your Lightning wallet with Nostr directly, and it automates payments. So pretty simple. Now, I've got some slides here that maybe will help me, one sec, reconnecting. 1 second, please hold. I need to find my phone. Oh, yeah. Tak, ale właśnie chcę slideshow, nie? I just want to go full screen for you guys. All right, here we go. So Nostr Eggs. So again, the future of internet is decentralized, blah, blah, blah. So the problem today is that, you see, we've got just centralized data. It's all on like Amazon or like whatever, right? It's impossible to be anonymous, and there's a lot of payment friction. It's complicated. So we kind of need a solution for that. And the solution is via Nostr, as I said, is decentralized, privacy priority, and seamless payments because it's directly integrated with the Lightning Network. This is the market that we're trying to hit, which is a huge market. And I think what matters more, because you can see here is like 30 billion, and like it's estimated at like huge amounts. But really the market that we're trying to hit is platforms like this. Does anyone know Kaggle? Hugging Face? Postman? Okay, so Kaggle is like the #1 online community for holding data, right? So like if you get some data about whatever kind of thing, like how red lights, like how often they turn red in the day, like whatever you want, you put it on Kaggle, and people can just use this data to do whatever model they want. Yeah? Very interesting stuff. They have some monetization, but it's not there by default, and it's only for a select few. It's complicated. So that's one of the things that we want to hit, because what if you can create, just like Kaggle has a data set, but you just put it on something like Nostr Eggs, and then every single time someone chooses to use your data, because it's got your Nostr public key, you can charge 5 sats. Satoshis, maybe. So, or like 10 sats. You can put whatever price you want. So you can monetize the data that you're gathering, right? And all of a sudden, you'll have the financial incentive to continue building on the data you've already got. So huge market that is growing. This is owned by Google now. They bought it in like 2014. Hugging Face is the #1 community when it comes to large language models, so AI, basically. If someone creates a new language model, they can post it on Hugging Face. There's going to be people that can download it. They create APIs. There's like all this stuff, but no monetization. Postman. Postman is like the #1 API platform where you can just create an API, load it on there, and they have like 17 million users, over 200 million APIs, but monetization is not built in there. Like, again, with Nostr, the monetization can be built, I mean, it's just a public key. That's all you need, and you can just zap someone on Nostr, which is just freaking amazing. So that's basically the, like, what we want to be able to achieve, to like be in there, but in a decentralized way, and allowing people to monetize their data and their tools in general. And so the product is Nostr Eggs, right? I mentioned it briefly. I can show you the interface later. But you can call public or private APIs. So again, you can create your own, or just one that is available to anyone, or just available to you. Same thing with your data, and you can enable microtransactions. Product features, I think I mentioned that already. Although we do have we created an SDK, which is a software developer kit, which means that it's easy for any developer to get started because there's already some pre-built functions. You don't need to do the whole thing yourself. So it's literally 3 lines of code, and you can start integrating AI in your tool. And how it works, it's actually quite simple. It's just a simple workflow. So the user uses our SDK. Users are developers. That's the idea. It's people that are building tools, anything. It doesn't have to be on Nostr. They can just decide to start using Nostr Eggs, and the way it's going to work is they use our SDK, so there will be a function, it's called getEgg, and they give us, again, JSON. That's what Fernando talked about earlier. It's just text file, right? So they send it via DM to us on Nostr, and the DM is fully encrypted. Only 2 people can read it. It's the person that sent it or the person that received it, right? So fully encrypted via Nostr. We receive it and we process it, so we see the information. We know that they want to talk with OpenAI, that they have, they choose this language model, GPT-4 or GPT-3 or whatever they want, right? Like whatever data they want, etc. We send this to the API provider. We get the answer back. We get the data if that's also requested, right? Like these happen kind of at the same time. Then we send it, first there's one step missing here, but we didn't want to overcomplicate it. Once we've got the answer, we know how much it cost. So we send via Nostr again a request of payment to the end user. So a Lightning invoice basically. He pays for that, and once we received it, we send him the information again via a DM private encrypted Nostr event, right? Yeah, so it takes, this number doesn't mean anything. It takes from 0.1 second to a few seconds, but really we're hardly adding processing time as opposed to what it would normally take, because again, Lightning is so fast. And of course it depends, we have 2 options. You can either, you as a developer, you pay for your users, or you can let your users pay because you use Lightning wallets like Albi, like stuff that are on the web, basically. And then the user can pay. And this will be a bit longer, obviously, because there's these extra steps that the user has to take. But that's basically how it works. And let me see. Revenue model, yeah, so that's just how we do it, which is also, if you think about it, it's pretty interesting because a company like OpenAI today, if I'm their user, I can build an app that, I don't know, whatever amount of people use it, but by the end of the month, I have to pay them $100. Yeah, for them it's accounts receivable. Yeah, in accounting terms, that's what it's called. Accounts receivable. They're expecting to receive $100. If I disconnect my credit card, or if my credit card doesn't work, they'll never get paid. Yeah. In our case, the user never gets an answer until he paid. Yeah. So there's no accounts receivable on our side. Yeah? In fact, the user themselves, they don't have accounts payable. Right? That's accounting terms, as I used to do accounting programs and systems. But yeah, so it's interesting because when we get the answer from the API, we know the cost. We add our fee, basically. It's as simple as that. And same thing for the data, basically. There's a cost to that, and we just add our fee. So pretty simple, and very simple accounting as well. Yes?
What happens if the user doesn't pay? You have to cover the cost.
Yes, exactly. If the user didn't pay, we cover the cost, but the user then we don't prevent it yet, of course. But yes, that's the kind of stuff. I mean, you can control that on your relays. You can control how many questions you get. There's stuff like this that you can control. Another important point that we also haven't solved, but that's I have some ideas for that. It's OpenAI. They have a set of rules. There's some questions that, if you ask them, they may not want to give you an answer. They may flag you and send you to the authorities or whatever, right?
In this payment model, if I understand correctly, you are providing privacy for the end user, which is also securing their answer. So imagine I'm asking an OpenAI about a topic that is politically not correct. So they can say that they block me and they refuse, let's say they block my payments, they don't accept my money.
Right.
But in this case, nobody can do that because I'm not the payer. Like, I'm not paying there. You are paying and I'm paying to you, right?
Yes, but the problem, you see, is if they block me, then it blocks every single user.
Okay, so through,
Yes.
through my activities, they can block you?
Well, if you do something that doesn't follow their rules, right? Well, then because it's my, like I'm doing the request, Nostr Eggs is doing the request to OpenAI, well then they can choose to block me. To be honest, OpenAI doesn't really do this kind of stuff, right? Like, yet, of course. But that's also the kind of problem that we're gonna have to deal with. I think, to be honest, it's quite simple to deal with. It's a matter of using other stuff than OpenAI because there's a bunch of other language models. Right now we did mostly OpenAI because it's just easy to set up because it is literally the easier one. Like you also have Llama from Facebook that is open source, etc. It's also very good. But it's more complex because you have to host it yourself. Like, but now they're starting to have a pretty solid API. But basically, the idea is this: if you can build up the library of language models that you have for an end user, so a dev that is integrating AI in his tool, it's like again, rather than saying OpenAI and GPT-4, it would be saying Llama and whatever model. Like it's just changing text. It's like literally 2 words to change, and like they're using a different language model. So very, very simple to integrate. Yes.
But if you host Llama 2 yourself, you don't need to KYC. What is it?
Exactly. Yes. So that's the end goal, right? Because if you host Llama yourself, then there's no problem. You just run your own thing, right? But it's very expensive to run Llama. Yeah. So like. I mean, you have because it takes up a lot of space on a server, and just running it is a lot of computing power. But on the laptop, you can only run the small models. But you can though, yeah, like 7 billion model. But the 70 billion.
On my laptop, I think I was able to start the 35B.
Okay,
version.
so that's pretty good.
I think it's possible to start the 70B.
Okay, I see. So yeah, so you see that's one of the next ones that actually we already have the function there, but we don't have the model already integrated.
My question is, what is the advantage of using Nostr Egg? If you as a developer can use directly.
Oh yeah, in that case, yeah, of course. So in that case, it's just, I mean, there's no KYC problems here either, but I see what you mean. Yeah, it's just ease of use because again, it's like. You just need to create a new instance of Nostr Eggs, so it's like the one line of code that we saw, and I think I can show you that, and then that's like the technical for devs thing. 1 sec, let me go full screen. I shouldn't have done that. Here I've got. Give me a sec. Yeah, the SDK, I have it open here. Yeah, so like now that's going to be like some programming stuff. So whoever is not a programmer, I'm sorry, but you need your variables. So like your public key, private key, you get them here. Then you create use effect is like it just turns on by default this function, and in here you see you create a new Nostr Eggs instance. Yeah? So you give just your public key, private key, etc. You connect to relays. By default, it's Nostr Eggs, but you can add whatever relay you want. And after that, you see this is it. Like, let's say you have a button. Like, so this is the button right here. Yeah, this is HTML. You have a button. When it's clicked, it runs this function. This function is described in here. And all you do is you create a JSON. So again, like you're just giving it data. So data will be what function, query OpenAI. What data you're giving it. So what model, what query, and then who pays it, user or app, right? App or user. And that's it. This, you just then, change it to a string, and you call nostreggs.getEgg JSON data. And that's it, and you get your answer. And so it's easy to use as opposed to like, I mean, I've created all the backend functions that connect to OpenAI. It's complicated, like, it's just with this, anyone can get started with AI, like, yeah, as easy as that. So that's kind of, the background of like how the code works. And I think, yeah, so that's the pitch deck, right? That's why I got this kind of stuff. But this maybe is a bit interesting. It's because here I already talked about it. Like, so it's kind of who we want to get as users, data analysts and researchers. Of course, we're going to hit like Nostr and crypto developers because I think Nostr is the opportunity to bring crypto devs into the space because it's fun and like it's easy to build in a decentralized way without having some shitcoins, and AI developers obviously. But in here, that's like based on nostrapps.com. This is the different AI tools that exist that are, the bigger ones, let's say, per category. And so, of course, we want to try and, especially I'm thinking in the writing space, it can be kind of interesting because they do long format. And I think it can be interesting for them to integrate some AI elements for, their writers because it's like blogging kind of tools. I don't know, like I think there's just stuff they can easily integrate, because again, it's easy to integrate with Nostr Eggs. Yeah, that's, you know, acquisition strategy. The team, Tomek is there too. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I also wanted to show you, maybe just to give you an idea. This is all run locally, but what's very interesting too is that that's the web app. So like on our website, if you click login, it leads nowhere right now, but it will lead to this. And basically this web app, what's pretty interesting with it is that there's very little APIs that allow you to get some like deep insights on like previously what you've done or like how users have been using your thing. This is all on Nostr, right? It's all DM, so it's all encrypted, right? Like you see this response function, chat with GPT 3.5, blah, blah, blah. This like, if you're not logged in as the user, you can't read that, yeah, because it's encrypted DM, right? But here I'm logged in as a user and I've built an app. And you can see it's all run locally, so the numbers might not all add up. But you see like total API calls, there was 239, so egg requests. And you can see like, you know, this is like day by day kind of, right? Same thing for how many responses you got, then last 7 days, etc. And then at the bottom, there's like this table that's pretty neat. And you can see, for example, this request here, it's got an ID. That's the function that was called and how much it cost. 20 sats, and you can then view the details of it with like literally everything, like who paid it, the user, what was the idea of the vector store that was used, right? What was the message that was, do you know what a Nostr app is? I was testing for like a Nostr chat, I think. The event ID, system message, this came later, that's why it's not filled in. And then, you know, there's the details of what answer you got. The answer was, sorry, I'm looking wrong. Yeah, the response you see, that was one of the first ones I did, so there's no answer there. And the invoice details, so there's, you know, confirming Zap payment for this egg ID and the Zap pre-image, blah, 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 blah. So all this information, because it's all on Nostr, like it's freaking amazing. And yeah, and then, you know, also you can go and see like your API keys, like, you know, get some like simple ideas, and then, you know, the nest, which is where you'll be able to see your vector stores and create vector stores very simply. Just give it a name, description, blah, 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 upload some files, JSON or PDF right now. That's why we have PDF and JSON. But we do have another option that is pretty neat, is that, and it's not through this, because obviously it's just for coding, is you can give a list. And I did this, for example, do you know Lynn Alden? Who knows Lynn Alden?
Oh, I got her book today.
Oh, nice, congrats. Yeah, nice. Right, so she's a Bitcoiner author, and like she's very impressive woman. And basically, so she's been using Nostr a bit. If you just, again, using one of the Nostr eggs, if you just give her public key, then it's going to go get all of her events. It's going to create a vector store, and then you can very simply have a conversation with basically her Nostr account. And like, you can ask her, what's the status of her book? And it'll give you an answer, right? Just based on like what she said. So we have, yeah, these 3 types, which is PDF, JSON, and Nostr events directly. Et voilà. That's it. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Questions?
If there's questions, yeah, happy to answer. Yeah?
Yeah, about the DVMs that I think
yeah.
you have to research more. What is the possibility of integration?
So DVMs is this thing that's built on Nostr. It's data vending machine, which I have to say, I think it doesn't really hold its name properly because it's not actual data, but that's just details, right? That's cosmetics. I think DVMs basically is a thing that Nostr Eggs would integrate with. For now, it's not the priority, but that's the idea, right? It's you know, we have the SDK, which just makes it super easy. But for developers that are using the DVM, then it should also be integrated with it directly. You see what I mean? Like, it's kind of, Nostr Eggs would be a DVM itself, so it's a place that you can query via Nostr directly, or you can use the SDK, but for the...
With other DVMs.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, because in the end, I think, you know, like, and when we talked about it, it's the same thing. This, I mean, anyone can do it, right? Just like anything that comes to program, anyone can do it. It's just a matter of doing it. And, you know, it can be better, worse, etc. I think it's just a matter of, you know, giving options to people and being able to be on a competitive market that is these Nostr DVMs that are just there and, let's say, more fully integrated with Nostr is anyway a good way to place Nostr Eggs as a place that, you know, developers can use as well. But for now, it's on the roadmap, basically. Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned it's slightly connected. You mentioned about the chat with Satoshi, right?
Yeah, talk to Satoshi, yeah.
Have you checked out the Spirit of Satoshi initiative?
Yes. I think I screwed them a bit because they wanted to release and I released first Talk to Satoshi. So they actually didn't release it yet, right? They're hyping it because they realized just releasing a Bitcoin chat is actually boring because other people did it. Spirit of Satoshi, I think it's cool what they're doing. I think it's it's a long-term thing. It's like low time preference. It's the kind of thing they said themselves when they get the language model built, they would want to create an API, etc. And in that case, I'll integrate straight away, like give it as an option on Nostr Eggs. But what they want to do is build their own language model, right? And so just like I created Talk to Satoshi, that like if you ask a question, it's going to go find like the most compatible paragraphs, let's say, of all of these books for this one answer, and then it's going to take this, sends it to OpenAI, and OpenAI builds an answer based on this, and it won't give you other information from outside. It'll just use these like whatever amount of paragraphs you said it should use. What they want to do at Spirit of Satoshi is build the language model itself, so when you ask a question, it doesn't go and fetch this data, it already quote-unquote knows it. Yeah, it just uses the language model, which I think it's cool. It's a very ambitious project because that's the kind of stuff like training models. It costs billions of dollars, literally. They want to do it in this open source, collaborative way. So I think it's going to take forever, and it's anyway going to be quite expensive. But yeah, but I welcome it. I mean, I think in the end they're the kind of thing that would integrate with something like Nostr Eggs. If I mean, actually we would integrate it because for them it's all the same. Yeah, yeah.
I'm part of the testers.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. And how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
There's different initiatives, users answering questions and then submitting them to the community, then checking the responses from the model, feeding it with additional content like podcasts, books, articles, and so on. There are lots of initiatives that are going on in parallel.
Yeah, which I think it's interesting, and plus, they've got Svetsky behind it. He's great at explaining this kind of stuff. So I think, I mean, I don't know. I hope it works out because it's if it works the way Svetsky talks about it, it's a pretty cool project that is worth exploring.
They also have a monetization of the interaction. So if you improve the model, you get some sats.
Yeah. So that's where. Yeah, exactly. It's not so much. It's not, I mean, I don't know, if you think of a company, it's not so much what you'd call a monetization, it's just an incentive for their community, yeah.
But don't you think that providing sources would be a better idea for AI? Like Steve Wozniak said that a few days ago, I read that he said that if AI provided the sources they use, it would actually be more reliable, because right now AI can tell you whatever, and it can be not true, or it can just be an answer that it chose to give you.
Yeah, I mean, there's cases, lawyers, there's like lawyers in the, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, just my free thought.
Yeah.
That it would make a lot of sense if there was an AI model that could actually give you the source to give you a certain information.
Google Bard does it.
Yes.
Google Bard.
Yeah, but the thing is also like how trustworthy the source is, right? Because living in a current world, we shouldn't also take for granted what the source says. Because as long as the source is not permanent, anyone can edit. So whatever, if I tell you, even what I know or I believe in based on some source is not 100% true. It's still not objective but subjective kind of like thing, because you don't know if the source is telling the truth and if the source that is here and now is going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, but so I think this is why it's important to just have a huge amount of language models. That's it, because then you can choose. I mean, if you think about it, you could do with like a simplified tool, something like Nostr Eggs, in fact, in a future where we have multiple language models integrated. You could ask one question that is sent to all of these language models, and then based on whatever extra rules you set, it's going to choose the best answer from these, right? And this is like, and this allows for like a competition in language models, and it has to be easy to integrate. OpenAI is winning because they're the easiest right now. That's for now.
How do you, for example, envision, or do you have any idea like what this project might be and what will be its value in the next 3 to 5 years? Because Nostr is like developing, so I mean, it's a protocol, so you can literally build anything you want. I see it as a whole economy, because it's also connected with the payment system, and it's really like an open book, like
Yeah.
an empty book.
Yeah, so
like, do you have any kind of like vision or aspiration that you think your project is?
well, like again, and I think for us it's pretty important. So we've got, of course, the name Nostr Eggs. We've got the color palette that is following the Nostr purple, but that's kind of where it ends depending on who we talk, because you know what matters is if you're talking to Nostr devs, Nostr is what matters. If you're talking to like some Bitcoiners, Nostr is what matters, right? And Lightning, yeah, that's already, you added a second one. If you talk to any other dev, they don't care about either Bitcoin, either like, a lot of them don't understand like why privacy even matters, because I mean, I don't know about you, I'm of course a lot in the AI space. There's all the time new AI tools that are out there. They're all built on ChatGPTs or OpenAI API, and no one cares, right?
People just load their photos to see some
Yes.
kind of thing, like.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, no one cares about that, right? So Lightning, Nostr, they're just tools, and this is how it has to be branded, because this is how we can, like, you know, just show it as like, it's a cool thing, it's a cool tool, like, you know, it's easy to integrate and to bring AI into your things. These are just tools, and in fact, Nostr, like, in the way we built it, you cannot care at all about it, because when you use any kind of API, you go on a website, you give your information, and they give you an API key. Right, it's like a complicated number, like a Nostr key, basically. And this, when you do an API call, you use this key. It's a token, and you send it to the API, and this confirms that they know you, and you can get an answer from them, right? So any developer that uses any kind of API for whatever app he's building, which is literally every developer, well then, he's going to be used to this concept of API keys. When you log into our app, it's either you already have your key, and this is how you log in, just Nostr key, or you create one, and it gives you just this public and private key, which is anyway what developers know. And if they don't care about Nostr, that's as far as their Nostr integration goes. Like, they don't need to go and like build stuff on Nostr. They're just using Nostr as a tool. Yeah. And then, I mean, they need to use Lightning, though.
Like with the car. Like, you're driving a car, you don't need to understand how the engine is built. So
Yeah,
like,
pretty much. It's exactly.
So this is also like your goal.
Yes.
To give it, okay.
Yeah, what they need to understand and use actually is Lightning, though, because they need some Bitcoin, they need it on Lightning, because this is how they'll pay. But that's just part of an entire onboarding process, and I think this is why it's very important, just like I was showing Kaggle, Hugging Face, these platforms, adding some financial incentive for them to be able to monetize directly, because there's so many devs that work on a bunch of stuff that like either never sees the light because I'm never going to raise $1 billion for like this idea, so like fuck it, right? Or it's you know, two simple elements.
This is a huge advantage of Lightning, right? Because you can have even like the micropayments that just people are saying, okay, cool, you know, man, like congrats, just to motivate like even somebody or like sponsor, so you have such an easy option to directly send some funds.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very good.
And it can be every request, every time someone uses whatever database I created of, again, how the lights turn on or whatever, I get paid, like whatever, 5 sats, 10 sats, you can choose your price. Yeah. But that's on the roadmap. We still haven't it open. But that's how it works for us. It's just a matter of opening it up so anyone else can do it. That's, yeah.
So I guess the main issue is how much of these developers that are on Kaggle would be willing to use Lightning.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically, But I think a lot of the guys that are on Kaggle would be willing to monetize for their work, right? So it's just a matter of being like, okay, you can monetize, but it's Bitcoin. Come here, but accept Bitcoin, right? I think, you know, as time moves forward, like it'll be quite easy to like find people. The thing is, Nostr Eggs has to survive by then. Yeah. But that's, yeah.
Not put all the eggs in the same
Yeah, definitely. That's why, you know, ideally in a future world, like I said, you know, Spirit of Satoshi, the end goal is not for us, like Nostr Eggs, to integrate with Spirit of Satoshi. It's actually for Spirit of Satoshi to make their API available via Nostr Eggs by the open source solution that it'll be, right? So that was what's their name? The last platform, Postman. That's what they do, is like they host APIs and you can run them through them. That's like the more long-term goal, that anyone can choose to build with Nostr Eggs. So automatically they're integrated with the Nostr private key, public key, and with Lightning. And in fact, in that case, Nostr Eggs doesn't even make any money, right? Like ideally, it's just interaction between the end user and whoever created the API. And no money goes to Nostr Eggs. But then, you know, that's how open source works. You have to find the right solutions to be able to like monetize in that space. And there's a bunch of ideas. Yeah. Cool?
Thank you.
Nice. Thank you.
Coś jeszcze?
Dziękujemy i zapraszamy na Piszne Piwo. Imprezujemy.
Dziękujemy.
Dzięki.